Marvel Rivals has been living rent-free in my head ever since its release back in 2024. With an ever-expanding cast of characters and the release of the newest Alchemax 2099 map, Rivals is really showing that they aren't afraid of this futuristic and high-tech corner of the Marvel Universe. But today I actually want to talk about a different, more mystical side of the world. The supernatural side of Marvel is often underrepresented in adapted media, especially so when compared to the street-level and more mutant-centric corners. But a character I'm sure will blaze their way into the roster eventually is Ghost Rider. I usually start these videos by giving you a background of the character's comic book history and power set, but the first thing we have to do here, as a legacy character, we have to pick who's going to be the Ghost Rider. Since the character's debut as Johnny Blaze in Marvel Spotlight number 5, 1972, there have been around 4 mainline Ghost Riders. The second rider was Johnny's half-brother, Danny Ketch, who first appeared in Ghost Rider number 1, 1990. Then Alejandro Jones in Ghost Rider number 1, 2011, and the latest and my personal favorite, Robbie Reyes in his debut in all-new Ghost Rider number 1, 2014. That's 4 options right there, and I didn't even reference Shala, Helverine, or the Hood. Anyway, who should be the Ghost Rider for Marvel Rivals? I think in order to fulfill this character fantasy as a flaming guy on a motorcycle, we've got to go with the OG, Johnny Blaze. A former motorcycle stunt performer, Johnny Blaze struck a deal with the Hell Lord Mephisto to spare the life of his friend and father figure, Crash Simpson. And while this deal didn't really work out for him, it did lead to his spirit being bound to that of Mephisto's rival, a figure known as Zarathos. Now wielding the power of Hellfire, the spirit of vengeance rushes into battle as the Ghost Rider. Now that we know who the Bonehead is, it's time to pick a role. With all these different versions of the Rider, they could realistically be any one of the roles, but let's really break it down. First thing you notice when you look at him, his head's on fire. Then, he's wearing black leather, spikes, and chains. And finally, he's riding a motorcycle. Johnny Blaze is a duelist. By the way, when I say he's riding a motorcycle, I mean he's riding the motorcycle. At all times, Ghost Rider is attached to the Hell Cycle, only leaving it when he dies. With such a large and unique hitbox, I did give him a little bit higher of a base HP, starting at 325, and a bit more base movement speed, similar to Black Panther and Wolverine, 7 meters a second. These stats put him in a league of his own in terms of survivability combined with mobility, but I really wanted to make sure you weren't punished for looking cool as hell. Ghost Rider's primary attack comes in 2 forms, but for now we'll just talk about the first, Drive-By Blaze. Along with Brimstone and Hellfire, Ghost Rider is commonly equipped with mystical chains. The kit I designed for him is focused on movement and resource management. Similarly to Daredevil, moves will fill or consume Hell Cycle fuel. For his primary attack, I wanted it to be the main way that he could fill up, so a fiery whip that will burn enemies and fill up the tank on hit should work well. With a hitbox similar to that of Thing's Stone Haymaker, it has more range than a standard melee attack, but that doesn't mean you can be far away when you are attacking. Now, the other form of the primary fire is called Skull-On Collision. When I'm referring to this alternate attack, I mean it in the same way that Elsa Bloodstone's Monster Piercer only comes out after she uses a different ability. For Ghost Rider, Skull-On Collision can only be used if you're going fast enough. This is an attack where you tilt at the Hell Cycle and run over your opponents, knocking them away and dealing extra damage if you manage to balance on one wheel. That's right, you can pop a wheelie in Marvel Rivals. The secondary fire, Sin Spirit Slide. A bit of a spoiler here, but Ghost Rider is mostly melee, and this is his only real ranged option. If we're going to have Ghost Rider on the motorcycle at all times, that means we have to, at some point, reference the Akira slide. So for Ghost Rider, sliding will bring him to a stop, but also send out a pillar of hellfire forward. This crawling fire will damage any enemies and slow those who stay within its path. With the attacks out of the way, it's time to talk about his abilities, starting first with Damnation Travel. Like I said earlier, Hell Cycle fuel is a resource, and Damnation Travel is what consumes that resource, burning up fuel for a movement boost and the ability to drive up walls. Holding space will give you the ability to leave behind a burning trail of hellfire. This ability operates as a mix between the standard sprint mechanic on Black Widow and the swimming ability of Jeff, allowing him to use vertical movement in combination with dealing some tick damage. Engine of Vengeance is how I kept the ball rolling on all these unique mechanics. One of my favorite abilities in this game is actually Iron Fist's Meditation, so I wanted to figure out what that could look like on Ghost Rider. For Engine of Vengeance, I wanted him to park the Hell Cycle and unleash a wide area of Hellfire, burning every enemy and converting all the damage he deals into fuel, allowing him to get out of the area as soon as he needs to. In the comics, Ghost Rider's origins have changed a lot, and I mean a lot. If you want an in-depth explanation, you could actually check out Sir Superhero's video on the history of the Ghost Rider, which I do really recommend and will link in the description. Danny Ketch's original story tied his powers to something called the Medallion of Power. And since they never actually described what the Medallion of Power does, I made it a grappling hook. Attaching it to one end of a chain, Ghost Rider can anchor himself at a target location, allowing for quick directional changes, or the ability to enclose an entire area in Hellfire, just like Human Torch's Pyro Prison. Because of the momentum that this ability could bring, I do think it should be on a bit of a longer cooldown, somewhere between 15 and 20 seconds. Ghost Rider has two passive abilities, the first being Zarathos' Hellfire. Every time I've mentioned Hellfire so far, this is what I'm referring to. This is a pretty standard burn effect and probably deals similar damage to Human Torch's, but one that improves while you have more fuel, encouraging the Ghost Rider player to perform a balancing act between fueling his fire or fueling the bike. Hell Cycle Symbiosis is kind of a catch-all for the things that I've already described in the kit. It talks about a natural jump boost that I've given Ghost Rider, which I think personally works well with his stunt driver personality, as well as describing the condition that needs to be met in order for Skull-on Collision to be used as the primary attack. I referenced earlier how it turns on if you're going fast enough. Well, going fast enough means continuous or rapid movement, so anytime Ghost Rider is moving faster than 7 meters a second, Skull-on Collision will be his primary attack. Before I move on to the ultimate ability, which I think you guys can all guess what it'll be, we have to talk about the team-up. Pyretic Ritual is a team-up with the Human Torch. Ghost Rider has actually been a member of the Fantastic Four a couple different times, although mostly in alternate realities, and the one time it was in 616, it was Danny Ketch and not Johnny Blaze, but regardless. This team-up was mostly inspired by their in-game mechanics, so a little lore tidbit was pretty convenient, even if it doesn't actually fit. For this team-up, whenever either one of them makes a zone of fire, both of them are granted lifesteal for the entire duration of that blaze. If that zone of fire ends up defeating an enemy, both will get a little bit of a cooldown reduction on Flaming Meteor or Medallion Anchor. This team-up provides both of them with a little bit of sustain, but also encourages some combo moves if you want to make sure an enemy dies within your area of control. Every single Ghost Rider possesses a supernatural ability called the Penance Stare. Whoever looks into the rider's eyes will both see and feel every single bit of pain, guilt, and trauma they have ever caused on anybody else in their entire lifetime for all eternity, punishing sinners via self-mortification. Now that sounds like an ultimate move. Unfortunately, it's also exactly what Daredevil's ult does. The mechanic where you have to look at him is exactly how I would implement this in game, but unfortunately as an ultimate ability, we do have to be a little bit more original. For Ghost Rider, I think you can place this ability in an area of your choice, engulfing that zone with Hellfire that causes enemies to receive every single bit of damage that they dealt within the past 1 second, or continue to deal for the duration of the ult. This is a game-changing ability, especially when used on those high DPS ultimates like Punisher's Final Judgment. And even though it could have a great impact, in those cases where there isn't somebody popping one of their ults, it will also consistently refuel the health cycle so that Ghost Rider can get in and out of those fights very easily. To be honest, I'm shocked I haven't seen any reverse lifesteal effects before, and putting it on a character like Ghost Rider feels like it makes a lot of sense. Even though this version of Ghost Rider is always on his motorcycle, that doesn't mean there's a shortage of skins. You could easily make him look like Danny Ketch or Alejandro with just a few cosmetic changes. Not Robbie Reyes because he drives a car, but I still think you could change how the motorcycle looks a couple different ways. My personal choice for a release skin would be Cowboy Ghost Rider. Him coming in on a flaming horse would be the coolest thing in the game, period. The art that you've been looking at this whole video was actually drawn by Santiago Cuervo, who online goes as SC Nova. I'll link his Instagram here and show it in the bio. We have the same favorite character, and also I love this Ghost Rider design. It speaks so well to what I want to see, but unfortunately it doesn't have an image of the bike, so I'll leave that up to your interpretation. Overall, I'm really happy with what I designed here for Ghost Rider. I think he's probably a 5-star difficulty character, but that's okay. 5 stars are really fun to play once you've mastered the techniques and skills required to play them. I also really enjoyed this mix of hypermobility and tick damage. It's something you don't see very often in video games, especially in hero shooters like this, so I think it blends well with that unique identity that I was trying to give him. Let me know your thoughts on this Ghost Rider design in the comments, and while you're there, let me know who you guys want to see next. Thank you again so much for your support, and I'll see you guys in the next video.